I'm tremendously excited to be able to co-present with Scott. In this particular case, I'm going to talk about a very difficult subject, which is implementing a new healthy patterns in our life, and I have the pleasure of working with somebody who's done all the hard work. So I've got it kind of easy up here. I'd like to take a quick moment and just talk to you about something. I feel like we're on an evolutionary trek right now with respect to modern society, and behavior change. We've heard some about this morning. Bill spoke on it. Lori and Dale spoke on it, but the power of the subconscious mind in behavior change is profound. There's a doctor named Dr. Bruce Lipton, who's a researcher in cell biology, and Dr. Lipton has taught us so much. One of the most profound things is the processing rate of the subconscious versus the conscious mind. Take, for instance, the subconscious mind. It's capable of computing 20 million thoughts per second. Contrast this with our conscious mind, which does about 40 million thoughts per second. And you can see that the subconscious mind, or the ghost in the machine, the program, the operating system, is actually 500,000 times more capable. So a quick tangible way to look at this is, as I'm speaking to you, you're processing everything I'm telling you with your conscious mind. And we've got some strong brain power in this room. And I'm sure you're taking it all in. Imagine 500,000 times that processing power. That's your subconscious mind. When we're talking about new health habits, when we program a new habit at the subconscious level, it literally becomes autopilot. As Bill mentioned earlier, though, that 28 to 30 day time frame, up to 60 days is what it takes to implement a new habit. And as Bill said, it varies depending on the habit. So from an evolutionary standpoint, we're on track for, well, less than great things. So it's important that we're here talking about this today. We've got stresses, we've got excesses in modern society, and if I can't say it, this graphic says it all. So we've got 5 steps to help achieve a new health habit. And if I can hand it off to my awesome co-presenter, because he's actually done the hard work. This is Iron Man, Scott Kolbe.
I'd start with, this is me in 2011. From a career standpoint, this was one of the most fun projects we got to work on. Glenn Close, Busch Stadium, throwing out the first pitch, part of an event, a gala. I weighed 218 pounds at that time. I was always exhausted by the afternoon at work. My energy wasn't there, but I was big enough that I got to be the guard for Glenn Close, throwing out the first pitch. And we really got to do some fun PR. But it was fun from a career-wise standpoint, but I was pretty unhappy overall with where I was. I was feeling bad. Actually, Judy helped me kind of get clear with how I could bring this all back together. And then, fast forward, I'm going to go through a few pictures, and I'm going to talk about chronology of it a bit. If I jump forward, this is last year. I'm running in Chattanooga at an Ironman event. I'm at 185 pounds at that point, and I'm having the time of my life. So this is just a really awesome experience for me, and this is important part of it is my wife in this whole journey, and I like this picture because it's the only picture where I'm tanner than her. So, but we both went through this journey together. So if you go back, she went into an anti-inflammatory diet as well. So it's just been an interesting journey, but. Really, we hit some milestones. We started planning with business and really realized that the business side of things, really, that part was going fairly well if you looked at it from a dollars and cents and mechanically how the business was operating, but I was not happy at all. My wife wasn't happy, and a lot of it had to do with our health. So through that process and getting clear with my own personal mission, I realized I like to be outdoors, I like to do things, and I really just didn't have the energy to do it. And I found all kinds of excuses to do that. And then we had some stuff that surprised us that you just don't really expect to happen in life. And then you just all of a sudden had this trigger point where we're going to change everything. And that's where we went. So what do you do before you change everything? You go on vacation, go party in Miami, and then change everything. We go to Whole Foods. In 2011, we walk into Whole Foods, and I thought I was going to cry looking at the things going into our cart, like kale and all kinds of stuff. And I looked around and was like, this is going to be a really hard journey, and realized that you can't just change everything in your life in one quick moment. And we started working on phasing in changes to our diet, went into an anti-inflammatory diet. Why? And I'm sure the doctor will get into more specific what that is, but it's just really things that basically make your immune system go crazy, such as sugars and dairy products and things like that, that basically help you fight off infections and illnesses and things like that. So that's what we started doing, and we started going down this journey, learned a lot along the way, didn't have any professional help. It was reading books and trying to decipher things and talking to people who'd gone through this journey. So we started doing that. I started dropping a little bit of weight. I dropped 8 pounds in about 6 months. And with that, I decided, well, in January, I'll buy some running shoes. So I went ahead and did that. I was an elected official at the time. It was a miserable experience for me. I decided through working with Judy, I was getting out of that. But as through that, I bought these running shoes. I held on to them, and I used them finally in April, so the first time, but started running. And I used to be a runner in high school and in middle school, so I ran competitive cross country and track. I couldn't run a half mile without stopping. So it was a difficult journey when you start reflecting back on it. And then people encouraged me. I got really around some really positive people that encouraged me to get through this, and it'll come back, and it slowly started coming back. So then I decided, you know what, I'm going to sign up for a triathlon. I've always wanted to do that. I live out near Lake St. Louis, and a friend of mine, her sister-in-law is Sarah Haskins. She's an Olympian here from locally, and she just kind of walked me through, encouraged me, and got through it. I didn't know how to swim. I nearly drowned on the triathlon. But I had great people supporting me. My wife's there, and I really found this positive thing. And I realized suddenly, like, my energy's going up, and I was feeling better. So I was like, well, now I'll go to the doctor for my annual 20-year checkup and see how I'm doing. So I have a really blunt doctor. She's like, so what am I here to discover about you? Because you haven't been to a doctor in 20 years that you're not telling me, and you expect me to find out. And I'm like, no, I'm just really in for a checkup. She goes, no man ever comes in here for just a checkup. So I explained the journey, and she's like, okay, we went through that. Well, then I got a rude awakening that just because I started turning things around, blood pressure, all those things were all marginal. And she's like, you keep on this path, you're probably going to be on medications at some point. Then I really got focused and was like, wow, that's not really the journey I want to go on. I also realized things you've done in the past take a while to reverse. So I started just keeping down that journey and kept staying focused and decided to just go annual checkups. She still asks me the same question every time, why are you here? So, but with that, started getting more into triathlon, started training a lot. And then I realized in October of 2012 was the last time I'd been sick. I'd always get sick twice a year in the winter, just like everybody else. But as I started getting healthier, I haven't been sick. And nothing really changed other than I'm exercising and eating healthy and things like that. So all of a sudden, I realized my immune system's starting to get much stronger, and also my energy. I could get through the day. I wasn't cranky in the afternoon, and I just starting to enjoy things a whole lot more. And through that, I just kept shedding off the weight. I really wasn't trying, but I was using MyFitnessPal, and I log every meal. I'm a really disciplined person, so once I set to do something, I've logged for basically 3.5 years. I went to a nutrition presentation, just started logging. They said, watch these things, and that's what I started doing. That's the only way I can control how many calories go into the body. If I go and work out, I actually eat 3 times as much because I'm really hungry at that point. So, but then I also got coaching on how to cure those cravings. And some of the things in foods are highly addictive. And that was the thing, like I'd go ride my bike for 75 miles and eat a whole bag of potato chips at one point. So, and that was not uncommon. So I just started to help learning how to cure the cravings that would just kill me. And through that, I just kept training. I hired a coach to help me with triathlon, and she's awesome that she's really blunt as well. I really like blunt women, I think. So this morning, I did a workout this morning and said, you're going to rock your presentation today. But when I made a major mistake last week, I got a really blunt, we need to talk about this. So, so that's what I really need to hear. And I think that's what a lot of people need to hear. And through all that process, I just keep getting stronger. The Ironman events getting much faster. Within like 6 months, was able to shave an hour and a half. But it's been I've struggled many a times, made plenty of mistakes, but getting there has been awesome, and I really enjoy this. So I'm hoping to inspire anybody, answer any questions, but then we have the opportunity for Dr. Dan to just give more information today. So.
And I'm super excited about that. Scott, just bring us all up to speed on an Ironman. Talk about distances and what you're actually doing, because this is
like this year I'll
profound.
do two 70.3 triathlons, which will be a 1.2 mile swim down the Tennessee River, and then 56-mile bike ride through the mountains of Georgia, and then a half marathon at the end. And then I hope to do that in about 5 hours and 20 minutes. So I couldn't, in 2012, I probably couldn't have walked the whole thing in 5 hours.
So thank you so much, and it's just profound, and please stay up here with me. Just amazing. We're going to talk about 5 different steps here, and setting a baseline is probably the most important thing here. We talk about biometric measurements in medicine, and these can be as basic as blood pressure, height, weight, but there's also deeper things we look at. The psychometric component is changing some of your thought patterns, okay? And habits play into this in a big way. So we start out by setting baselines. When we consider this, and I might have misspoke earlier, being just a touch nervous, our subconscious mind can process 20 million bits of information per second. Our conscious mind processes 40 bits. So I think I might have said 40 million. So that's the ratio, 500,000 times more processing power in the subconscious. Just wanted to hit that again. The second point is to set priorities. We all have strength areas. We all have weaknesses. And what we want to do is lay on the strengths as much as possible, because when the weaknesses hit, we're going to need to bounce back to those. So identifying that. If you're very disciplined, like Scott is, you can figure this out on your own. He did have some coaching. He did seek out information in the books, but he had the discipline to implement all this. But call for help as you need it. If you have a weakness in your ability to execute on things, call for that help. But setting priorities, the second step, it's so important. This is an incredible book by Charles Duhigg. It's called The Power of Habit. Show of hands, anybody who's heard of this book?
I just started it.
Wonderful. It's a New York Times bestseller, and it's phenomenal. It speaks to habits, and I'm going to fill in here the subconscious mind's role is huge in this, okay? It speaks to habits of having basically 3 steps. I'm going to skip forward to here. This is a graphic from the book, but on the left, if you can't read it, it shows a cue, a routine, and then a reward. He's got habits broken down into these 3 steps. The cue is the feeling that comes up. Most often, this is an emotional feeling. And in this graphic, it's somebody who gets stressed. They cope by having a drink. That's the routine. And then the reward is they feel better at the end. Well, what Charles Duhigg lays out in this book, and this is true for any habit change, is that if you can keep the cue and reward intact and just change the routine, in this case, switched out having a drink to social interaction. But it brought him a gratifying reward at the end of happiness. So we want to identify harmful patterns. We have to figure out what is that routine that needs to be changed. And this is crucial, paramount, when we're talking about health and wellness. Again, incredibly simple in its layout. The execution is the challenge. Conditioning your mind and body for success. So we hear about mind-body, body-mind connection. There's a reason why we led with mind up here. Because changing these thought patterns, programming the subconscious mind, 500,000 times more powerful than your conscious mind. Programming the subconscious mind is what's crucial in this conditioning, and the body follows. We can see the results over here, Mr. Ironman. So we're talking about actually programming at this level and having that carry it through. The last step, and this is of crucial importance, is to reinforce your good decisions. Highly motivated individuals, I'm looking at some of them in the room here, I know that this is done regularly. Not just the change that's made, but then you're rewarding yourself, cognizantly thinking through these beneficial patterns that you put in place and how it's helped you. The last thing I'd like to touch on is a concept known as neuroplasticity. This basically means that our minds are not fixed in terms of what we're capable of thinking or what brain centers tend to be activated. When we operate on a habitual level, we're talking about patterns that are pretty much set in stone in there, it feels like. But I can tell you, they're not set in stone. They're set in dried mud, and you can reconstitute that and change the pattern. Connections restored between the brain and the heart when the emotional driver is there, and when you reinforce with your positive gains that you've made. So 5 steps to implement new health habits. We covered set a baseline as number 1. Got to know where you started. Set your priorities. Identify strengths and tag your weaknesses. The 3rd step is identify harmful patterns so you can change that routine that's between the cue and the response. And then condition your mind and body and mind for success, and reinforce those good decisions. Scott, come up. Anything to add?
I think everybody always says that they don't have time to exercise, or they don't have time to cook or make food at home. And what I found is we just ended up adjusting our lifestyle, and we don't go out to dinner much. If we do, it's planned ahead, and we know what we're probably going to order. And the exercise portion, once I stuck to a routine and a plan, and I'm not a big plan guy, but with the coach I work with, she's like, don't move it, just do it. Suddenly it just happens. And I think that's the biggest thing, is just forcing the habits. So
Awesome. Great. Any questions from the audience? Tom?
You mentioned something sort of in passing, and I want to ask you more about it, MyFitnessPal. So we talk a lot about systems here, and you talked about accountability. The self-motivated person sort of has self-accountability, but and Will's about to talk about applications and how they can help support the systems that we put in place. Can you tell us a little bit more about MyFitnessPal and the role it plays in systematizing, creating accountability, and helping you kind of maintain the system you have in place?
MyFitnessPal is just an app where you go in and log meals, and it has pretty much anything, most major restaurants and most things you buy off the shelf at restaurants or off grocery stores. But really, it's just a way where they have all the nutrients within it, from fats, proteins, and calories, and all the other components that are within that. And you can go in and basically set the baseline of how many calories per day you should be having, and then it also adjusts for exercise throughout the day. So really what it does is allows you to hit that baseline and warns you as you're getting close to actually going over for calories for the day, or if you've had too much sodium or too much fat or any of those types of things. So it really just allows me throughout the week to basically, I always look at it on a weekly basis because there's ups and downs. So one day you might be out and eat a little more, but it really just sets a baseline. And every week I look at Sunday, and my goal is to be level or where I'm supposed to be by Sunday. So, but if you need to lose weight, you can set the calorie deficit so you don't do something crazy like, cutting your calories by 1,500 calories or something for the day. You can drop it, and it'll also encourage you along the way that you're on track for losing the amount of weight you're going to, because it's not a linear path. It's a very much happens in phases. So, and the app just keeps you accountable. And if you want to add friends to help hold you accountable, you can do that in the app too. So,
Really an incredible tool. Yeah. Our time is actually up right now, and I'm so sorry not to be able to take additional questions.
all right.
Our time is not up. We have 2 more minutes for questions.
Jared had a question.
Dale.
It's more a suggestion or comment rather than a question, but you talk about retraining our minds and changing the framework of the way we think and look at things. One of the tools that I found that have been really effective in that is a concept called neuro-linguistic programming. And for those of you who aren't familiar with it, if you go to your library and look up, there'll be plenty of books on that. And it really speaks to the impact that language has on our ability to be successful in whatever goals we try to achieve. So if you're struggling with something, I think looking at neuro-linguistic programming will give you some insights into how you can frame that mindset a little more effectively.
Beautiful. And again, if anybody couldn't hear, Dale spoke on neuro-linguistic programming, and he's spot on there. Jared.
If you're just starting out and you want to take a bite out of this, which would you rather do, or which would you rather recommend, setting a healthy eating and diet habit or exercising?
Do you want to lead?
I think it just whatever feels most natural to you. The
Yeah.
question is how would you choose exercise over healthy diet? I think whatever you're most inspired to get started with is where I would start, and then have a second phase. I mean, go ahead and buy the running shoes if that's something you want to do or whatever, but don't feel like you have to train a lot for something specific. It's just getting out and moving. There was a study that just came out that people that train or exercise 20 minutes a day end up with bigger brains. They're 20% larger like when they're in their 60s and 70s. So I think it's just picking what's most important to you and sticking with it, and then phasing these things in. There is no right or wrong, in my opinion.
No, and I fully agree. They're mutually reinforcing. And what you'll find is once you start one process, whether it's the physical process first, or you have a devastating trip to Whole Foods like you had, that process, once you begin it, is in fact going to feed into the other, and they are mutually reinforcing. You won't want to violate your diet when you're working so hard on a personal goal, and you won't want to miss that workout when you're working so hard to eat well. So, great question. You can't go wrong. Start either way first, whatever's natural. I think we are truly out of time now. Please call on us after the meeting with any questions, and again, thank you for co-presenting.
That's fine.